Hello, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Accelerator workshop. And we are going to have Founded Outdoors with Katie and Howe, who are going to be presenting again tonight. They're going to be talking about revenue channels and business models. And I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie and go ahead and get started for this evening.
Thank you, Stacy, and hi everyone. As Stacy mentioned, I'm Katie. I'm co-founder of Founded Outdoors, along here with my business partner, Enhow. We are based in the Bay Area. It has been unusually warm here for this time of year, so we have all of our flowers blooming a couple of weeks earlier than usual, but it smells really, really good around here. We were brought in the past to talk about customer discovery and how did a session on different financing paths. And we're very grateful to be here again with you today. And today we're going to talk about how your business actually makes money. So not just what you sell, but how the money flows in. And our business at Founded Outdoors, we're focused on helping folks build thriving outdoor businesses. So you'll see that throughout our presentation, there will be many examples from the outdoor industry and many examples from outdoor businesses based in Maryland. When we think about monetization, we see it as a three-part equation, including who you're selling to, how you're charging them, and where the transaction actually happens. And new business opportunities can come from combining these three different parts in different ways, these three variables. Okay, so today we have two main goals. The first is to get familiar with different ways to make money. We want you, especially the newer entrepreneurs, to leave with a broader menu of revenue models and revenue channels to choose from as you build and grow your business. For existing or currently operating businesses, our goal is to help you identify new opportunities for growing your business and opportunities to expand your business. We also want to help you be more resilient. So, if one business model is no longer viable or a revenue channel slows down because of the weather or because of the global market, you have other options to stay in business and grow. And how anything you'd add about why we're focusing on this today?
No, I wanted to also say that what Katie's going to talk about and I will be talking about, while rooted in outdoor examples, is relevant for all businesses, and so not just outdoor specific. And for existing businesses, one aspect in particular that we heard when we surveyed Western Maryland businesses was seasonality. And so that is another reason why we're talking about this is diversifying revenue streams to help you address some of the potential just ups and downs that you have to deal with seasonality.
Thank you. And how? Okay, so before we talk about money, we have to start with who you're selling to. And your customer is going to shape everything. Your product pricing, your revenue model, the channels where you're trying to reach them, your messaging for communicating with them. And if you don't know who your customer is, everything downstream gets a little bit harder. So we're going to anchor ourselves in our customers. When we think about customers, we typically think most commonly about consumers, individual consumers, or perhaps we're selling to businesses. But don't forget about other types of customers, governments, schools, organizations. There are others that I'm not mentioning. But customers are going to have a big influence over our revenue model and our revenue channels. So, simple example here. If I'm a business that makes and sells kayaks, I can sell the same product to many different kinds of customers. I can sell my kayak to individual consumers. I can sell my kayak to guide companies who want to buy kayaks to take their clients on the river. I can sell my kayaks to resorts who are looking to offer kayaks to folks who are staying at those hotels. I can have another customer group might be university groups who take new freshmen out kayaking every year. And each one of these customer groups might pay differently, they might buy differently, or be used to a different buying process, and they're going to value things a bit differently. So to start, I'm going to ask you to add your customer to the chat. Think about consumers, businesses, government, schools, organizations. If you have other types of customer, who is your customer? And ask yourself also, if you have a core customer that you're focused on, ask yourself who else could benefit from what you offer? Who has the need or the pain point? Who else has requested services or products from you? Go ahead and add that to the chat. Students' experiences. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. So now that we're grounded in our customer, we're going to talk about our revenue model. Our revenue model is how we earn money from customers. It's the mechanism behind how we get paid. So two businesses can sell the same thing but make money in completely different ways. For example, National Geographic, they sell maps, both physical maps and digital maps, and you have to purchase these separately. So each map costs money. Uh, that is different than All Trails. All Trails also sells maps, so trail maps, but they have a subscription model where you are able to get access for a month or a year, and that renews. So again, selling a very similar product, but in different ways with different revenue models. So there are a lot of different models out there. Typically for businesses, we suggest starting by testing one or two, and then many businesses will layer multiple models over time. Our goal is to find out what models fit our customers and our products. So when we are thinking about which revenue models to try, here are some key questions to think through. Do people want to own this product or service or just access it? Is this a one-time need that this product or service is meeting or ongoing? Is price a barrier to access upfront? And how often will the customer use this product? And these questions and the answers to these questions will help point you towards the right revenue models to consider. So now let's go through each one. And actually, before I do, are there any questions so far? Okay. So the simplest model, you make someone something, someone buys it, transaction complete. This is a one-time purchase. This model works well when the product has clear standalone value and customers want to own it. Yeti's a good example of this. They sell their product at a premium price. There's no ongoing relationship required with the customer. But the challenge is that you have to keep finding new customers or selling your existing customers new products. The next type of revenue model is a professional fee. And this is when you're selling time, expertise, a service. It's really the labor rather than a physical product. So think about guides, repair shops, consultants, lawyers. They charge for their labor, their expertise, not what they're making. Margins can be good with this model because you may not have a lot of other costs besides labor, but it's often tied to hours, how much labor you can provide in those hours, which caps how far you can scale or grow without adding people or adding other employees and labor costs. Some examples of businesses providing a professional or who are using a professional fee model. All Earth Eco Tours, they take folks on snowshoe tours during the winter. Allegheny Trail House, they provide bike mechanic services. In both of these examples, it requires human labor to provide the service. Any questions? All right, let's keep on rocking. Okay, the next model is a razor blade model. This is one of my favorite models. This is when you sell the durable item you sell the durable item like the stove here, the top, this metal piece, uh, and you make your money on the consumable or the item that is intended to be used up and replaced regularly. So MSR sells the stove, and then the fuel canister is what keeps customers paying the company. So think another example, printers and ink cartridges. So this works really well when the consumable is proprietary or sticky. What I mean by that is when the consumable is designed so that it only works with the brand's product or works best with it. So think about an espresso machine. It only works with Nespresso pods. So you once you own the machine, which is pretty expensive, then you just in order to use it, you have to buy this company's other product, their pods. Or in the case of the stove here, you don't want to have to deal with compatibility issues of another brand's fuel when you're relying on it in the backcountry. You really want to make sure that that fuel is going to work because that's how you're going to fuel yourself when you're out camping or backpacking. Okay. The next model is rental. And this is when the customer pays for short-term or temporary access but doesn't own the product. This works especially well for gear that is expensive, that people want to try before they buy, gear that's seasonal so that they don't need to own it all year round, or gear that's just used infrequently. And this is also really good for tourism adjacent businesses. People traveling, they don't want to bring a bike or kayak with them. It's very hard to fly with a bike, for example. Uh, any questions about the business models that I've covered so far? Okay. And feel free to stop me if there are any sound issues.
I think Carol's having issues. Carol, can you hear Katie now?
Yes, I can hear. It just keeps freezing.
Okay.
Are other people having the freezing issue or is it just okay? So it might be Carol and
Yeah, I
Carolina.
think it's on.
All right. Our next model is subscription or membership. So a subscription service is a business model where you pay a recurring fee, monthly, yearly, to get ongoing access to a product or service instead of buying it each time that you use it. So the benefit is predictable reoccurring revenue. This is why investors really like this model. This is why they invest in businesses that have subscription models. An example of a membership model, which is a type of subscription, is Costco, right? You have to have a membership to be able to shop there and access their lower bulk pricing. All Trails does a yearly or annual subscription where you have access to their maps. Ski passes are a kind of subscription where you pay for access for the season instead of every time that you go skiing. And the benefits for a resort like Wisp is that the season pass locks in commitment even before the season starts. It gives them more predictability around revenue, and then it insulates them from down seasons where maybe they don't get enough snow or it's not cold enough to make snow. Next, I have commission take rate. This is where you don't make the thing or you don't provide the service, but you connect the buyer and seller and take a cut. So, for example, Gear Trade is a marketplace for used gear. HipCamp is a marketplace for booking campsites on people's private property. This scales really well because you're not holding inventory or you're not just delivering the service directly. So growth doesn't require more inventory or more staff. But the risk is you need a lot of volume to make the numbers work. So if you take a 10% fee on a $100 booking, you make $10, which isn't much. It probably is not going to sustain your business unless you do that thousands of times. Also, you're 1 degree removed from the customer relationship. So Uber connects you to a driver, but your experience is really with that driver, how they drive, how they interact with you. Uber sits in the middle. They're not fully owning that relationship, so there's a little bit of risk there. Okay, the next is licensing. So, licensing is when you own something valuable, a technology, a brand, a process, and others pay to use it. So, Gore-Tex, they don't make apparel, they license their manufacturing process for their breathable, waterproof membrane to the brands like North Face that make the apparel. Another example is GoFly. They make women's outdoor pants with a zipper that allows you to easily relieve yourself when you're in the outdoors without having to fully undress. They patented their zipper design and have sold it to other outdoor companies that make pants or snow pants. The benefits of this model is it is scalable, it's high margin, but it does require that you've built something that other companies want to use. If anyone has like, other examples of companies doing licensing, feel free to put it in the chat. And then the last revenue model that I'll talk about today is franchising, which is a type of licensing. This means selling the right to replicate your business model. And it's what happens is the franchisee takes on the operational risk. So they take on hiring, managing staff, making sure that the customers have a positive experience. And you, the franchisor, get fees for allowing them to copy your business model, your business blueprint, and you get a percentage of their sales. This works really well when you have a proven, repeatable system. Fleet Feet, for example, they are run by local owners who really know their running communities. Fleet Feet, the company, provides the playbooks, systems. They provide relationships with the shoe vendors. They give their franchisees access to better buying power so they can buy products at a lower price. I think McDonald's is a franchise. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, the Fly founder is from Frostburg. No kidding. Okay. Um, Let me give you an example of just to cement this definition of uh, revenue models and examples. So back to my kayak business. A kayak business might combine making and selling kayaks. They might rent kayaks. They might offer memberships so people can access their kayaks at anytime they want to go kayaking. Maybe the kayak makers created a proprietary lightweight plastic that they license out to other boat makers. Right? So there are multiple ways to make money from the same core assets. Okay, so we've gone through all of the different revenue models. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to ask you to choose the top one or two revenue models that you think are relevant to your business. And think again about your customer. How do they want to buy? Is it a one-time purchase? Do they want access at a lower price through a rental or a subscription? Think about your cash flow needs. Do you need money up front, or can you wait for recurring revenue over time? Think about your product. Is it a one-time product or something used repeatedly? Is there a natural consumable? Think about your capacity. Can you handle operations like inventory and logistics, or do you need a lighter model like a marketplace? I'm going to pause here and I'm just going to give you a minute to think through the top one or two revenue models for your business. If you're currently operating business, think about if there's another revenue model that you could try that you're not currently doing. I'll pause here. And actually, and also, are there any questions? Just note that there is some overlap between these different revenue models. Did anyone on the call who has a currently operating business, has this has anyone identified a potential new revenue model? I see Mark has rentals, professional fee guiding, potential for ad sales from online tutorials, videos. Awesome. Thanks, Mark, for adding. Okay, let's move on here. Now we're going to talk about revenue channels. And what I mean by revenue channels is how you get paid. The channel is where the transaction actually takes place, where the sale happens. Here's a list of revenue channels. These are the most common ones, but this list is not exhaustive. Most businesses use multiple revenue channels, not just one. And these channels range from channels that you control, so like your website, if you have a retail store, to channels you have less control over, like Amazon, distributors, wholesale partners. And so each of these channels comes with a balance that we'll talk about between reach, how many people see your product, margin, how much you make per sale, and then control, how much you own the customer experience. Now, when you're thinking through revenue channels, here's some things to consider. Where does your customer already buy products or services like this? Where do they discover products or services like this? Do I need or want control over the customer experience and the relationship with the customer? Or do I care more about reach and having more exposure? Do I have the budgets, the skills to be able to win in a certain channel? Not every channel is going to be realistic early on. And do the numbers work? After costs and fees, is there still a profit? And then lastly, what stage am I in? If I'm an early business, I'm still in the process of validating that people want my product. And it's really important at this stage to get feedback from the customers, to be really close to the customers, and to help them develop a sense of connection and loyalty to the brand. And that's really helpful when they feel like they're touching the brand, they feel like they know who the founder, who the team is. Whereas later, you've proven that people want your product. You probably have some brand recognition, and so you're considering more how do I grow this reliably? So again, go where your customers are, where you think you can win, and where the math works for your business and is at the right stage. Okay, so let's go through these. Okay, first revenue channel, website. Website is the highest control channel that you have. You set the price, you own the customer relationship, you keep the full margin. The challenge is that you have to drive all the traffic to yourself. Unfortunately, no one stumbles onto your website by accident. You have to do a lot of work to get people there. Track and Yak is a good example of a service business using direct online bookings effectively. Uh, and there's no middleman. You just directly book with this business. And while I'm on their website, I'm also getting a sense of their brand. I'm getting a sense of their team and what other offerings they provide. Next is physical store. Does anyone know this store? Yeah, Jeff, you know it. This is the tiny corner bike shop. And a physical location works especially well when the buying experience matters. When customers want to touch the product, especially if it's an expensive product, they want to get advice from someone who really knows what they're talking about, or they want to feel like they're part of a community. A physical store can be a great place to gather people, to have events. Having a physical store is great for building trust and controlling the entire experience, but it does also come with high overhead and fixed costs. So the cost of labor, rent, electricity. Any questions so far? Yeah, okay. All pretty straightforward.
Katie, I do have one for you.
Sure.
In your experience, I mean, are you seeing, because it's something that I think is just a little frustrating, is that with all of the online sales now, it's just making it so tough for these physical stores. Um, I mean, I know it's something that we've been battling with for quite a few years, but I see it more and more that even when I do go to physical stores, they're like, oh, just go online and order it and it'll be at your house in a couple days. So just curious as to what you think about that.
Jeff, did you want to jump in on that? You said you
Um, I
wanted
was
to.
just gonna I was just gonna say that one thing that I've seen is that stores will start to carry less options of certain items, and that could be like to combat their sort of inventory problem. but that's where I could see that a store is going to carry limited inventory because they know there's access to online products. And I don't know if that's a good or bad business model strategy, but it may just be that it's the reality for some businesses and they're aware of these other options. And so that's helping drive their decisions, I guess, maybe on the inventory side.
Interesting. And how do you have anything to add? And then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I'll just say that yes, this is 100% something that depending on who is speaking, right? The retailer, the brand, obviously from a brand's perspective, who is selling into retail stores, they themselves not have being the retail store, although in this particular case we're talking about pop-ups, which is slightly different. Pop-ups is actually serves the purpose of connecting with your community and spreading the word. This is the case
Hello,
where
how you
people
doing?
don't know that you are a brand or product that exists, and so you're kind of out there, kind of spreading the gospel. In terms of the particular difference between retail, like you selling as a small business, you selling to retail versus them being able to buy online. So there's a couple things you could do. For one thing is that this is why small retailers really dislike it if you are on Amazon. Amazon in particular because it's a short delivery window. If the alternative was buying on your website, there's still like, hey, the expediency of like having it right now versus having it a week or two later. The one reason people buy online is potentially getting like a free discount code in the beginning that you wouldn't have in stores. So I've had brands talk about this being a problem with their small retail partners, and as a show of like support and for that relationship building, they've actually taken down their like new customer discount code so that they're more competitive as an online they're like D2C, their online sales, so that the retail partner, the local retail partner, is not just a try on place for their online sales. Other things that brands have done is to give additional incentive for their partner, for their retail partner, because they recognize the value that the retail partner is bringing, which is that they are making their product. Essentially marketing the product to a new audience. And so they might offer freebies and other additional things for that partner, for that retail partner to enable them to be more successful. So I've had people talk about that they give free stuff to just for their retail partners to give to their customers. And so there are ways to and it would have to be intentional on the part of the brand to build that relationship with the retail partner. But I think the brands do recognize the value, and in fact they find it quite challenging to build those retail partnerships. So it is something where people have to support, the both companies have to support one another to be successful. So I
I
hope
would
that was helpful.
Thanks, Anha. I would add that it does seem like there have been a number of highly publicized local retailers that have shut down after decades of being in operation. My hypothesis is that some of it is probably the impact of the pandemic and the inventory glut that resulted from that, where they ended up ordering, the orders were delayed, and then people stopped buying so many products and started shifting their spending to travel and other experiences. And so then the retailers had too much inventory, had to discount that inventory. And I think that we're still seeing some of the lingering impact of that. Uh, I think also physical store is hard in terms of margins, and it often requires the owners to be working really hard, like working through the weekend, also going to events to promote their store. And so I think people probably get tired and get burned out, and especially with the pandemic and then some of the uncertainty lately with tariffs. Uh, I think people look at their options and say this could be a good time to retire and move on. Just because the passion piece is so important in these small stores. And then the other thing I'll say is it does depend on the type of store. For example, a lot of running stores have actually done quite well in the last few years because we've seen the running market increase, especially trail running. And running is the type of product, shoes, where you do want to go in and you want to try on the product and you want to talk to someone who knows something about the shoes. And the fit of the shoe makes a really big difference in your experience. And the shoe models change often. So I do think where there's the businesses where you actually have to go in, or even more likely you'd go in and try on and touch the products, they have probably done better.
And those shoe stores, and this is something that's more specific for the retailer, are really good at having customer loyalty programs. So, because the alternative is you could go in and try a shoe and then go buy that same size or like in style online. But like shoe stores in particular are very good at cultivating that loyalty of like how much you spend over time, getting free stuff, and so just making it, making a dollar spent with you as if you're a retailer more go farther, and building that long customer lifetime value with them is worthwhile. So
Yeah, and also building community around the store. Like several of the running stores that we know of that have done well have Saturday morning runs, Wednesday morning walks, like, different ways that they continuously bring the community back to the store.
Hey, Katie, do you mind if I say something?
Please, Mike.
I mean, the one thing I've noticed and I've seen the data is high-end retail has been doing fairly well. High-end malls are even coming back. I think a lot of it is about if the customer experience as you're pointing out with running, and also just the education needed and the comfort level of buying different products. And so bikes or running shoes that are fit for you, I think are natural sort of retail products for people to kind of go in, get measured, things like that. I think, if you don't have that complicated product where you need a lot more education and probably someone explaining and identifying how that product adapts to each individual customers. If it's more of a commodity, you're probably looking more at sort of e-commerce. That's just been my take on it, from a retail perspective. You want trust, you want educated salespeople and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's right, Mike. I think it's also interesting, the high end piece, like stores that are selling more expensive premium products. My hypothesis is that they've also done better the last couple of years because in the outdoor industry, for example, we've seen that sales have been driven by higher income consumers who have done well because the stock market has done well, whereas middle and lower income consumers haven't done as well, and are more price sensitive because of inflation. And so I think that might be another factor, what types of products they're selling, the price point of those products, and how well they're doing. That's my hypothesis. Okay. Next, we have a pop-up or event. These are one of the best early channels because they're low commitment and they're an opportunity to get a lot of feedback from your customers. You're not signing a lease or negotiating with a retailer. You set up your booth, you talk to the customer, you try to sell things, and you learn. So you find out pretty quickly whether or not people stop, pick up the product, interact with it, and actually buy the product. It's also an opportunity to tell your story in person to really connect with the customer. That matters a lot for early stage brands who customers haven't heard of yet. This is a company from the Founded Outdoors community that sells bags made from the wings of paragliders, upcycled. And they've had great experience doing pop-ups over the last year and interacting with their core customer who are wing glide pilots. Okay, enterprise sales. This means you're selling to an organization, a business, rather than an individual. And the process usually looks quite different. With enterprise sales, it's typically a longer sales cycle. There's more people involved in the decision, but it's a potentially larger order and more predictable. Oftentimes, enterprise sales organizations are more likely to continue to buy from the same vendor. So, for example, a rafting company selling guided trips to a corporate retreat organizer or a university outdoor program, they're selling the same experience that they would be selling to a consumer, but probably through a very different process. Rafting. This is an example of a company in Western Maryland. We had a conversation, and the owner talked about how enterprise sales were important, increasingly important, especially enterprise sales to corporations looking to do retreats and universities. And that was important to even out weekday sales when there were fewer consumer sales and around the shoulder season. Okay, any questions? All right, marketplace. Marketplace, think about Amazon. Marketplaces give you instant access to a massive audience that's in buying mode. The downside is that you're competing on price and reviews. You're paying fees to the marketplace operator on every transaction, and you don't really own the customer relationship, right? Amazon does. This works really well for products that when people already know what they want and they're actively looking for it, not where your product requires a lot of explanation or storytelling, or is a new type of product that requires some kind of education. So again, it works really well for products that people know when they know what they want and they're actively looking for it. Okay, last couple ones here. Feel free to stop me if there's any questions that come up. Wholesale retailer. So getting into retail means someone else is putting your product in front of their customers. And that's very valuable reach for you. Right now, you have access to all the customers that are walking in their stores, but your margins shrink. So if I sell my jacket for $100 on my website, I bring in $100 of revenue. But I do have to pay for marketing, for shipping, for returns. If I sell to a retailer for $50, they sell it for $100. I only make $50 in revenue, but I didn't have to pay to acquire that customer. So there's a trade-off here, a trade-off with customers, number of customers that I'm reaching, my margin, and my ability to control the customer experience. Last revenue channel I hear, distributor. A distributor sits between you and the retailers. So they have an existing relationship with hundreds of stores and can get your products into places you may not be able to reach on your own. Distributors are very important, for example, in the food and beverage business. It's often impossible to get into grocery stores without a distributor. Now, with a distributor, you're even further removed from the customer because now you have the distributor and the retailer between you and the customer. And the cost of a distributor is another layer of margin that you're giving away. So on your website, you sell a jacket for $100. If you sell directly to the retailer, you might sell it to the retailer for $50. They sell it to the customer for $100. Now, if you sell to a distributor, you sell it to the distributor for $30. They sell it to the retailer for $50. The retailer sells it for $100 to the end consumer. So now you're only bringing in $30 per unit. So again, lower margin. Now, it makes sense if you at a higher volume, when you need distribution and don't have direct access, like it's really hard for you to get in these big box retailers where you know your customers are spending time and money, or if you're entering a new region or market where you don't yet have relationships. Liberty Mountain is an example of a distributor in the outdoor industry. They have relationships with outdoor stores, outdoor retailers across the country. And if you work with them, they will talk with the stores about your products to try to get your products placed in these stores. So let's now go back to my example of a kayak business. Now, I'm making the same product, but I have four different channels now working together. I could sell to direct to consumers to on my website, or if I have a physical store. I can also sell them at other local retailers and put my kayaks in front of people who don't even know that my brand exists. I can also go to events and festivals and do pop-ups and demo the product where my customer already is spending time. I could also do enterprise sales where I rent or sell to organizations, businesses, and universities? Any questions? Okay, so again, I just want to do a quick reality check when it comes to revenue channel. Stage is really important here. If you're early, remember that it's about validating that people want your product, really being able to understand and get feedback from them, and giving your customer a sense of who you are and what your brand stands for. And then later, once you've proven what people want, your operations are more sophisticated, you can do more volume. That's when when you can layer in more channels, especially more of those marketplace retail distributor channels. I'm going to pause here and then I'm going to hand it over to Enhao. But please choose the top one or two revenue channels that could work for your business. And if you are in a currently operating business, see if there's one or two revenue channels that you haven't tried yet that you'd like to try and write those down. And I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds here while Stacy plays the saxophone for us. Website pop-up event. Great, Mark. Stacy Physical Store website and pop-up. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Enhao, who in this next part of this workshop is going to be much more interactive and question-based. So take it away, Enhao.
Thank you, Katie. All right. So Katie just talked about a lot of, probably gave you a lot of food for thought and ideas around what your either new business or your existing business's revenue model and channels could be. Now I want to talk about how do you know if it's the right one for you? It might seem great on paper. You've seen, she talked about lots of awesome businesses. You're like, I want to try this and that. So now we're going to talk about how to efficiently figure out which one might be right for your business, given that we all have limited time, we all have limited resources. So the key here is testing and applying a framework for each of your business. And so it's going to take a little bit of workshopping. I really welcome any discussions, any questions as we walk through this. So remember at the beginning, right, like Katie talked about different customers, different revenue models, and revenue channels. So when we're thinking about this as our monetization strategy, we are choosing one customer, one model, and one channel. And each of that, then for each of those, then we want to be able to test to see if that one works. So, what is our goal when we're testing? The first thing I want you to think about as a framework for testing is that it's not a test we want to run for 6 months because we don't have that time, right? Time is money. And so, the goal is can we test this new idea in 1 to 2 weeks? And what would it take for us to be able to do so? So, and each of you have different resources, different skill sets, right? Like different teams. This is very specific. I cannot give you a one size fit all solution. And then when we're testing, we're looking for a couple of things. The first thing we want to understand is, does the customer want it? That might seem very straightforward, but we'll kind of talk a little bit about more specifically how to figure out whether or not they want it. But our ultimate goal is we're coming up with a new business revenue model. Is this something that people want to pay for? And so clarity wise, it's helpful, especially if you're testing out, let's say, a new revenue model, even potentially a new channel that your customers are not familiar with, especially with you before, but maybe are isn't familiar with at all before. Maybe this is something they do in a completely different context, right? But they don't do it regarding your activity or your product. And so can they clearly understand how you're selling it? Does it make sense to them, right? Like, or do they have a million questions? Just like, I don't get it. It's too complicated. Or, that clarity maybe allow you to be able are you communicating that clearly and are they getting it? And then going back to that part of that demand question is, well, are they going to pay for this new model? Or is there a budget? Let's say in 2 weeks' time, maybe you're selling to a business. They're not going to pay for it, but there's budget allocated to do something like this. That is work getting warmer. And then the last thing, and probably the most important insight, because some of the other stuff we won't have perfect validation, but I think the thing that we could really understand is where's the friction happening. So when you are trying to make a sale happen, right? Like where are people kind of getting stuck? Where are people asking questions? When are people kind of slowing down and hesitating, like, wait, hold on, I'm not ready to move. That is where important insights can be given. Overall, I want you to think about testing as a way to learn more about your customer and just gaining insight on them. And the goal isn't to make a sell, okay? Because even if you aren't successful, hopefully what you learn can be applied and you can then iterate and maybe change a little bit, tweak a little bit of how you talk to this customer, or even potentially who that customer is, or maybe changing the model a little bit, or maybe changing that channel to be able to have a successful model. And so all of this is part of our journey as entrepreneurs to continually learn. And the best way to learn that is rather than as a business plan that we're typing out or thinking in our heads, the best way to do that is actually going to our customers and making a pitch and actually getting them to commit. And so all of this is with that in mind. And so, I mentioned that each of this, when we pick one, is one combination. I want to design at least one test. So if Katie kind of inspired you to think about, okay, I actually came up with four of these, like I want to try like schools, and I want to try businesses, and I want to try like to sell to my city government, right? Like, and I want to maybe try a couple of different models, and you suddenly start coming up with like a couple of customers, different models and different channels. And that can give you a lot of combinations. You might end up with like, 8 or 10 combinations. So it's important to maybe pause a second when you do come up with these ideas to even just do a little bit of sanity check of seeing like, okay, actually, let's look through these combinations. Which one when I actually write all the combinations together, right? Like I'm selling services to school, or I'm selling like one-time purchase to a business, like which one of these actually seem more likely and easier for me to be able to make happen as a entrepreneur. Once you've done that, I want you to pick your top ones, and I want you to then form a hypothesis for that combination. So, what is a hypothesis? Forming a hypothesis for that test is really, we've talked about who's going to pay. We're talking about now making it a little bit more practical, thinking about how much are they going to pay. And maybe your question is, but and how you and Katie didn't talk about how much to charge. Unfortunately, sorry, we didn't have time to cover how to price something. But the fact that you are going out talking to customers, that ultimately I'm going to tell you is the best way to figure out how to price something. So you kind of come up with something. Maybe you look at competitors, you kind of look at your own business and think like, okay, well, this is something that I feel okay with. So how much are you going to charge? What are they paying for? Right? We talked about the revenue model and the revenue channel, but we didn't specifically say like, okay, given that customer and that model, like what are you actually selling them, right? Like what is being packaged? And ultimately, what is being packaged then can answer the question of why. Why would this customer want this product, right? And so you come up with a hypothesis, may not be perfect, but hopefully it is informed on insights that you have on your customers, right? From customer interviews you've had, from talking to people out there, like maybe potential partners, right? Like hopefully you have a good guess that you want to test. So let me go through some examples. So I've came up with three. Let's say we're still in the kayak business, but let's say that we're doing more kayak services versus selling kayaks, because selling kayaks kind of limited us in terms of how we want to think about this. So think about kayaking service. Let's say I want to sell to consumers, I want to do rentals, and I want to do in-person sales. So the consumer specifically, I want to be more specific than just general consumer. I want to say I want actually the consumer to be tourists, and I want to do 2-hour kayak rentals for $40 to $60. And that would have to be done in person. And the reason why someone would want to do this is it's a convenient and fun activity to do while they're on a trip, right? Maybe it's something they don't even have to plan ahead for. They're like, oh, the weather's nice today, and like the river's beautiful. Like I wanna, like why don't we go like take a kayak out on the river, right? Or on the lake. Second idea I have is what about schools? Like we've never tried to sell to schools. What would I sell to schools? Maybe schools have kids, right? Like this is we're focusing on, let's say, K through 12 school. Maybe they're willing to pay for a guided program, a guided trip for their students with the goal. And why would they want this? Maybe they want to be able to have really educational outdoor experiences that also feel safe. But, as a school, they don't want to have to deal with like their staff don't have the expertise to go out on the river, and they don't want to have to deal with their own equipment. So they want to be able to give their students that experience without having to pay for storage and all this equipment. And so they're willing to pay, let's say, for a group of students, anywhere from $500 to $1,500 for a trip. Another one could be another group of consumers, so not tourists. Let's say the consumers are now locals. So with locals, maybe we want to try something that's more recurring. So let's try a subscription model. Would locals want to pay $50 a month, especially during the season, right? Like for unlimited weekday access to kayaking gear. They don't have to deal now with the hassle of owning, of transporting that gear. Now the transportation probably means that they have to have like special equipment and storing kayaks, right? That's pretty inconvenient. And so these are just some hypotheses that I might have for my kayaking business. And now the next step then is to go create tests for this hypothesis for each of these. Does anyone have any questions for what I just did? Okay. All right. So when we're creating a test, the first thing we want to think about is, okay, we have the customer that we want to reach out to, that we want to sell to. How are we going to actually reach them? Right? What does that look like? Right? Like, well, what's the method? Are we calling them? Are we emailing them? Are we looking for them? Are we going to event in person and trying to find and meet them in person? And then once we get their attention, right? Once we talk about our product, what do we want them to do? What is our call to action? Sometimes it may be getting a purchase, maybe a pre-sale, maybe a deposit. Other times it might just be, hey, can we move this forward? Can when I talk to your boss? Can we talk to a decision maker? Is there a budget? Can you understand if there's a budget for this? The thing that we want to measure once we've reached the customer and been able to make a pitch for it is to look for strong metrics of strong signals that they're interested in this model, right? So I mentioned earlier trying to get a deposit, maybe getting them to sign a pilot, a connection to decision maker, but sometimes it might take longer than 1 to 2 weeks to get there. And so other things we're looking for along the way are potential leading indicators. Like, hey, they're continuing to respond to me, right? Like I give them more information, potentially more commitment, or like, hey, here's more details, here's the pricing, here's what a package can look like, and they're still responding and wanting, then that is at least it's good. It's not the same as someone signing a pilot, but you're moving in a good direction. Maybe you reach out to 30 people and you're like, and you got 10 of them to just even respond to your email and say, hey, we want to hear more about this. That is a really excellent response rate if you're cold emailing people, right? So even that in itself might be an interesting indicator for you that you are onto something. Not the same as even getting a single person to sign up, but this is just more data point for you, right? Like, okay, my initial email kind of hooked people, but not many people are buying. So maybe something happened in between there, right? And trying to go back and be like, hey, the 10 people who responded to my email but didn't buy, why not? Or like, and trying to figure out where that friction came from. I remember back to what I mentioned earlier around goals, right? Our goal is to understand, do they clearly understand what this business model is, how I'm charging for it, what value this model, like this, this new product or this new model is offering them? Can I get understanding around, do they have a budget for this? Is there a price point that they're interested in? Because the price point we listed, right, we came up with in the hypothesis, doesn't have to be that price point. Maybe you figure out, hey, everyone's jumping on board so quickly. Maybe I priced it too low, right? And so maybe you might want to raise your price point. Or maybe the price point is too high and too many people are a little scared, especially in the beginning for something new, and maybe you need to lower your price point. And then that, our question around where is friction happening? Where are people kind of asking a lot of questions? Where are people really getting hesitant? Where are people falling out of the purchase process? Ultimately, you have all this information and you need to make a decision. And that decision is this a model that I want to dedicate more resource into? Is this something that I actually want to invest in and really try out? Like, do I want, maybe in my test, I reached out to 10 customers or 20 people, but I actually want to go buy some, get some marketing dollars and maybe even hire someone, get someone to do this part-time to reach out to hundreds of customers. And so that decision is not necessarily a straightforward one, but remember, we are looking, if you get these strong indicators there's customers, that is ultimately what is the best sign of whether or not you want to move forward. Everything else, I think you want to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt and see if you can kind of, oh, wait, uh, went too far down. Hold on. 1 second. I just scrolled to the bottom of our slides. Wait, hold on. 1 second. Okay. And so what was I saying? Okay, so ultimately, you want to use the data point that you're getting from your interactions with customers to decide whether or not you want to move forward in terms of putting more resources into a particular business model. Let's walk through an example what a test could look like, walking through the steps around execution and talking about what kind of call to action we might want to have. So going back, one of my examples I mentioned was doing some kind of guided kayak trip for schools. So how would I do something like this in 1 to 2 weeks and how? All right, like it's not that simple. I might feel like, okay, I really like this idea, but I'm gonna need like 2 months at least to run this test. So let's see if we can do it in 1 to 2 weeks. Especially with the help of AI. This poster, by the way, flyer was made with the help of AI. Probably quite obvious. And so first, you want to design a flyer or a landing page, right? I don't go spend a bunch of time building a perfect website. We know because Katie and I literally just spent like the last 2 weeks, more Katie, designing, working on some corner of our website. And so we get it. Like designing a website takes a lot of time. So really like time box yourself. Like what do you need to get the information across? Can AI be helpful in doing that? And then think about what is that value proposition, right? What are you offering? So in this particular case, we're offering a half-day guided kayak program. We're including gear, we're including instruction. We make sure that it's safe, and it's cost $25 to $40 a student, or $800 for a class. Maybe there's like an upper limit on how many students we can take. And our call to action is we're doing a pilot for this spring. So you can join us for a pilot. And to kind of, give a little bit of urgency to people, you can say, we can only fit 3 to 5 schools in this pilot. So, sign up now if you want to join. And then the customers, I want to focus. So I want to focus on schools. But when we're talking about a customer, we're not just talking about big picture, like especially when we're talking about businesses or schools or governments. We need very specific people within those because those are organizations, right? Like you can't just email school at like blah blah blah. Maybe you can. Some businesses you are literally just emailing that one email because the owner is like the only person answering that email. But in the case of a school, there's teachers, there's administrators, there are lots of people, right? Lots of stakeholders. So I'm going to first identify 30 local schools, private and public. I'm going to identify their PE teachers, Maybe see if they have any kind of outdoor program coordinator. I'll find their names and maybe their emails. I know that as a parent myself, that the PTA has a lot of influence, and sometimes their budget influences something like an enrichment program, right? Like something like an outdoors activity might be coming from the PTA's budget. So maybe I'll go and find the PTA of these schools and identify who the head of the PTA is and get their email on the list. Maybe sometimes the school's principal or assistant principal does a lot of this work. So maybe I will find the email information of that person. So I've identified now specific people, emails, or phone numbers that I can reach out to. Then I actually do the outreach. The outreach is I'm going to do it via email and on the phone. And I'm just there to introduce what we're doing. Like, why are we doing guided kayak trips for students? Like, why is it valuable for kids? Like, what kind of value are we, like, why is it valuable for kids and why is it good for schools? Right. And then in that quick intro email, right, maybe email, I'll include the flyer and I have a simple ask. In the one email, you just want one ask. You just ask for a meeting, right? In your phone call, same thing. You don't want to do all of your sales there. You can just say, hey, like, can I schedule a meeting to tell you more, right? Ask for a meeting. And when you're actually in the meeting, whether this be an in-person, when we're doing in-person or a phone or a Zoom meeting, right? Like just 10 to 15 minutes. And the goal here isn't just purely to pitch my new guided trips for schools is to understand, hey, is this something you guys are looking for? Are you guys looking for more enrichment activities for you students? Are you guys looking to take them off site, off campus? Are you looking for field trip opportunities? Are you looking for opportunities for them to build skills and better connect with nature? Or are these things that these schools and these people, right, like the PE teacher or the PTA or the principal, are they looking for that for their students, right? What if not, like what are they looking for? What are the things that they feel like they want to give to provide their students and their families? Um, and then you want to understand, okay, is there willingness to pay? Is there a budget, especially in the case of a school? And then what the potential buying process might be. Or maybe they'll say, like, actually, okay, this sounds interesting. Then, and then your question would be, okay, great. What is the buying process? How long would it take? Who, like, what, like, do we need to submit a bid? What does this all look like? Try to understand that process because that could be a lot of more places where you could fall out. And then you have a clear ask. You want what we said in the beginning, right? Our goal is we're trying to do a couple of 3 to 5 pilots. And so you want to, that is your ask at the end of your phone call, or your phone call could be at the end of the phone call, is there any other decision maker? But the goal eventually is to get a pilot going. And if you can't get a pilot going, that is the validation you need that this business model could be going somewhere. And so, does that make sense for everyone? This is something that, in theory, you could do in 1 to 2 weeks. I get that obviously you can also do this in the span of months, but I highly recommend really trying to time box it, force yourself to be hyper efficient, right? Like spend a couple hours, get all those names, right? Spend a couple hours, send out all those emails, make all those phone calls. And just like, being really hyper focused. Katie, I talk about like doing these as sprints so that you and your team maybe just like in the next week or two, like let's just get all of this done and see what we learn. And if I send out 30 emails, phone calls, and not a single one schedules a call with me, great. I that was you might feel like I just wasted 2 weeks, but in fact, right, like you wasted so much, you actually saved yourself so much time because potentially you might have gone out and spent the next 3 months launching this new program for schools doing kayaking trips. That is the time that you're saving yourself because in the matter of a week or two, you figured out that there actually isn't that much interest. So that is why testing is incredibly important. So does anyone have any questions around testing? Does anyone came up with a business model idea as Katie was talking through the different revenue and channels where you feel like, okay, and how this framework sounds great, but I really don't know how to design a test for my specific thing. I'm happy to workshop it live if you want to enjoy a challenge. So, no?
I have a comment, more
Yes.
around risk of, if it's a low risk opportunity versus high risk, and the importance of the test in those situations. Like I feel like a lot of business owners may say, "Oh, this is low risk. We're just going to try it," without actually capturing the cost in time in just trying something without really going through this process.
Um, Maybe I want a little bit. Are you referring to, Jeff, like the cost of not doing the test or the cost of doing the test and not
I
pricing that
guess it's
appropriately?
more about the cost of failure and whether or not a business owner does this test ahead of time to mitigate the high cost of failure.
Yeah, I mean that is the goal here for sure. Is that the cost of failure, the time, right, the missed opportunity, the resources going into actually making any of these ideas a reality is expensive. And so, forcing yourself to do as much as you can and learn as much as you can in a week or two is me putting an artificial constraint, but really it's to save you, right? Like it's to really help
Mhm.
you not waste more time. And I think to me, usually that's usually the thing of like, we as business owners, like we're pretty stingy with our how we spend our money. So we're like, oh no, I don't want to spend money on that. But with our time, sometimes we'll just like whittle away our time, spending another month, like, oh, another month doing this, trying this. But that's actually money. That your attention is money. And so you could be doing something else. So forcing yourself to like give a lot of attention to something for a very short amount of time to see if it works is really helpful. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah. All right. If not, then we can talk about diversifying revenue streams, which is very much in line with what we've been talking about up to this point. For the folks who are currently operating a business of some sort, and you are pained by, seeing months where you have, cratering revenue and you just have expenses, I totally get it. In the outdoor industry, whether you're operating a service business or a product business, you are very likely to experience some level of this. And not even for outdoor businesses, even for our just normal product businesses, for a lot of businesses, their sales happen in around holiday season. And so seasonality is a very normal thing to deal with unless you are a membership subscription business or something, right? Like where you don't have to worry about that nearly as much. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions for the folks who are existing businesses, and for the folks who are new, you can feel free to sign off from this point because the next section is definitely a little bit more catered just to existing businesses, and I don't have any more content that's for new businesses. So for new businesses, I want to think about what new offerings can you provide for the same customers that you have right now? In particular, I wanted to identify your most loyal customer segment, right? The people who come back, year after year to experience to buy your product, to experience your service, right? Ask yourself, what else would they enjoy from you? What else have they asked for? Maybe you're just like chatting with them and they're like, oh, it'd be great if there was this, or like, do you guys offer this? Like, and if you hear that, like multiple people asking, do you guys offer X, right? Like that is a good sign. And do they have any other unmet needs that you're aware of? Maybe it might not be something they know to ask you for, but you, in hanging out with them, are doing customer research and understanding, hey, like they have these other needs. And they might not know it, but I can help them with that. Maybe it's not exactly in your obvious wheelhouse, but it could be near your wheelhouse. So examples of this, by the way, these examples do tend to orient towards services businesses because that is where we see a greater need for addressing seasonality and trying to diversify. So just know that my examples gear more towards that. So it may be during off seasons, your customers might, maybe you're a guiding business and they're looking for more workshops or skills courses that they want to build those skills. Maybe they're looking for options to do more specialized or themed trips. And then another one of this is, could you do some kind of membership or loyalty program for those most loyal customers, right? Reward them, maybe provide something that is a little bit more of a recurring basis uh, for those people who know that they want to come back again and again. All right. The next question I want you to think about for you existing folks is, are there new customer segments that you want to target? And this might be folks that some of these folks might already be your customers, but maybe they're just not your core customers. But you notice some of your customers have this characteristic in common, right? And I want you to think about, what are your core offerings um, that you offer? Who else might enjoy those core offerings, right? Because we talked about your core customer. Now we're talking about your core offerings. Like, what is your best selling service, your best selling product, and who else can benefit from that? And so examples of this, maybe your core customer are tourists. Maybe they pay the most money, right? And so other segments could be locals. Like, so thinking about, okay, locals might not pay as high of a price point, but could there be a lower price point product for those locals? Or maybe they don't want like the really premium service and experience. Maybe they want a more scaled back version where they can help themselves a little bit. A combination of DIY with like what you're doing. Right? Maybe they don't want the like one-on-one guide, uh, um, customer ratio or 1-on-2. They're okay with like 1-on-10, right? Like ratio, and they would enjoy it just as much. Could you sell to businesses, right? Like, are there businesses that might want to be doing some kind of team building activity? Are there groups? Are there schools or youth programs that might want some type of enrichment? And when we talk about schools, we're not just talking about K through 8. We want to think about, especially given the context with FSU, right? Like, are there colleges, universities? Are there groups within those colleges and universities who love a particular activity or want to be able to have better team building and that you can tap into? Lastly, affinity groups. And the affinity groups can be part of a business, they can be part of universities, or they can sit outside of that. And they don't have to be affinity groups that's just like an outdoor focus group. It could be many, like that's a good place to start, right? If you know that they already love the outdoors, then it's an easier entry, but it could be not necessarily outdoor specific. It could be age specific, some other reason why people are brought together. We all know how so many people enjoy the outdoors and it has such therapeutic and impact on people. So, think broadly around who your customers who might be able to enjoy your offerings. Are there new formats for your expertise? So most likely you had this business for a while, and you built a business that's been able to last for a while, that you built significant expertise. Is there a new way to package the expertise that you built? It could be for potentially reaching new audiences. Um, Is there anyone who reach out to you often, but who you can't actually serve with your existing product or service? So think about maybe people who can't travel to come and experience your service. Can you do something online to give them a taste? Can you create books or ebooks? Can you create a YouTube channel with a Patreon community, where Patreon allows you to monetize your content online? Can you create a newsletter? A Substack is a good way to have a paid newsletter. And newsletters don't just have to be purely text, right? It could be, think about it as like a combination of, it is more text-based, but some combination of text and video and images. Could you have a podcast, something that, given that there's a new media center, can take advantage of that and use those resources. Maybe you have just a wealth of amazing stories and things to teach people. Can you go do speaking engagements and get paid for that? Do you have specific expertise that other businesses might value? Can you be a consultant? Can you and so really there are lots of ways, especially if you build expertise that you could potentially monetize it with. And so um, trying to think broadly of um, all the formats in which that could take in, right? Like, because we're so fo used to what we're doing now. And so, additionally, your business might have built up certain assets. Do you have any assets that could earn additional income, even if it's not outdoor focused? Or like, do you have vehicle? Do you have equipment? Do you have permits? Do you have physical space that other people might find to be valuable? And so for folks with physical space, can you rent that space for a retreat or for workshops for other people? If you have vehicles, can you have some kind of shuttle service? If you have gear, can you rent out that gear something when you're not using it? You can also sell gear that you've used, but that's still in good condition. If you have physical space, you can maybe create some kind of pop-up experience. Just think about what assets you might have. And then lastly, I just want to talk about the value of not going at it alone, especially when you're thinking about trying something new. As a business, working with other people can really unlock opportunities. So, partnerships and collaborations with other businesses, especially folks who share your customers and who share your values. Are there people that you would love to collaborate with in ways of creating new experiences, new products for your customers? Um, Especially think about if maybe you and another business have a different seasonality, right? Maybe you're a summer product and they're a winter product, or you're a summer service and they're a winter service. Are there ways in which you could partner in a way that allow you to have complementary seasonality? Like, oh, like, it's very normal to potentially partner with someone who is within your season, right? But an unexpected thing could be, hey, sign up to do this summer thing, but you also get a package with a winter thing. And so it could kind of lift both of your businesses in different ways. So examples of this, the most straightforward being bundle deals. But you can also work with hotels and restaurants. You could create some form of affiliate or referral revenue. So rather than, someone paying a single customer and you guys deciding how much people are sharing of that, it's just I refer people to you and I get 15% or, of what you make. Um, and partnering with local tourism and EDO programs. Spending the time to do so could really bring eyeballs and uh, you know to your business. And then, so lastly, when we're thinking about selecting a model to test, is to think about, does this align, right? Like regardless, my examples are focused on the outdoors, especially for existing businesses, because my assumption is that the folks who are here, who are existing businesses, are outdoor ones. But regardless, we're here to check when you are thinking about new models for your existing businesses, we're checking for alignment with your customer and your product, right? Like, how well does it align with your customer product and also additional layer, your values as a business? Does it align with your capacity? Can you actually execute on one of these ideas? If okay, like it sounds great to try out something new, but do I have the time to go write a book, right? Like if let's say like I figure out like, hey, my customers really want to read a book Like, do I actually have the time to do this? Or my customers really want to hear me do a podcast. Like, do I have the time to go into the podcast studio every week or every other week to to make content? Is there, especially for existing businesses, we really want to think about the money side, right? Like, do the margins make sense? Which is, you're going to have a better idea than a new business around estimating the cost of everything. So use that to your advantage. Really think about, okay, how much does this actually cost? And how much can I charge for this? Does that really make sense? Timing. Is this the right time to do this? Is this the right time to test this new model? Or when would be a good time to test this new model? And finally, similarly to what we just talked about, very in line with what we just talked about around testing revenue and business models, is can you do this quickly, right? How do you, the ideas that we just talked about, try new customers, try new products or offerings for those same customers? Can you do that? Can you validate that quickly? So if the idea is to do a podcast or write a book, is there a way to validate that without writing the whole book? Because that would take longer than a week or two. Although with the help of AI these days, who knows? Maybe you could write a book in a week or two. Um, Actually, I know for a fact you can write a book in a week or two because I've literally listened to podcasts talking about this. But but maybe you care. Maybe it might take the book that you would want to write would take longer than that. In which case, like, what is something that you can do? What kind of tests can you run in a week or two to validate, hey, I actually do want to spend time working with an editor, right? Like, week after week writing a book because this is because I know that my customers want this. I know my customers will read this, they want to pay for it, right? And they'll get value out of it. So just questions to ask yourself. And so with that, does anyone have any questions for me or for Katie? We have 5 minutes left.
So I had a few things written down, mainly when you had the shots of Precision Rafting up, who I worked for many years, and just to think about how um, the rafting trips on that particular river is like a midday release. It's not like an early morning event. So they would have customers hanging around for a long time before the trips. And so obviously there was a lot of, merchandise sold, um, things like that. And then just thinking about other opportunities that have sort of popped up over time where they're starting to offer things like float trips before the regular trip,
Mm.
and just more offerings. And then even in some instances where there's partnerships with the lodging partner, and so then there's these companies working together that are in different markets, but um, are working together. And then sort of the upsales of bring a group, and if you bring a group of this size, then you'll go for free, or bring a group of this size and we'll give you a discount for a future trip, which rolls into that same group bringing more people for another future excursion. So it's interesting to see, or I guess to learn about all these different approaches to business channels, sort of after the fact, that whether or not it was like intentional or formal, like businesses are always being creative to like figure out how do we um, bring more customers, do something slightly different, kind of think out of the box, which I think is definitely a trait of the entrepreneur. So
Hey, I want
100%.
to kind of tap into that, Jeff. It's something that ironically, um, couple pieces of advice that we were given even with our outdoor business was that just what you kind of mentioned, you need to create an experience. So part of that being very entrepreneurial minded and thinking about what are some of those other revenue models or revenue streams that Katie and Enhow talked about. It's like you bring them in for the core event, but then you have food trucks to have food served, and you get a percentage of that. So there's one revenue stream. You do offer merchandise or apparel. There's another revenue stream. You think about making this when they get there. What are some maybe small events that you can hold, games or things for kids. And we found this out when we had those races on our farm, that we had a little motocross track set up for the little kids, and they loved it because they were able to kind of be part of that whole experience. And then of course food trucks, and then apparel, and then you have just the camping, the parking, the again, creating an entire experience, leveraged around what your core event was really key for thinking about some of those other revenue models.
Yeah, Stacy, that's a really good point. Just they're especially kind of building out everything around the thing that why people are
Mhm.
there, right? And then kind of filling out the other needs, and
Mhm.
even this is where talking to your existing customers, being like, oh wait, like I'm hungry, like where's their food, right? Like that's where like, oh wait, I can make that happen. Like, oh,
Mhm.
like what do we do with our kids? They're running around like crazy. Like, is there
Yeah.
something for them to occupy themselves with? For sure. Yeah, I think, you don't necessarily, and you don't have to start out having that fully built out for the new folks, right? For the new
Mhm.
businesses, but for the ones who are around, for sure, I think, and both of you talking about these some of these where it's very low cost for you, right, to bring in these partners, but it's an opportunity to support one another and for you to
Mhm.
get some kind of affiliate or commission, like referral revenue, for sure.
I think Katie summed it up really good in the chat, that when you're entrepreneurial, when you're doing this, you think about other experiences or other ways that you can add value for your customer or your end product user.
Yeah, that's a great
So
point, Stacey.
I'm not seeing any questions from anyone. So I just want to say thanks to Katie and Hal once again for amazing material. I'm taking notes, and very interestingly, I'm going to be talking to a group of students tonight, and I'm like, oh, I can add this right into my conversation this evening. So some very, very good information. Thank you guys. I want to just let everybody know that we will be the 4-6 week, we won't be offering any type of an actual online event, but we're going to have Theron Bunnell, who was on one of these. He's coming to campus. He's with Augmental World, and he's going to be doing a demonstration on our campus. So if anybody is interested in coming, we can push out the information to you. On 4/20, we're going to be having another center that our Frostburg State University crew can offer to any type of businesses in the area. So we'll be pushing out information for that. So some really good information coming through here. Please pass along to any startups, because this is golden information. So thank you, ladies, very much. Thank you for all that joined this evening, and we'll be sending out some more information later.
Thank you. And I just put both of our emails in there because it's our last session with this program. So thank you so much. We've had a lot of fun, Katie and I. And if anybody wants to reach out to us with any questions, it's in the chat. So.
And best of luck, everybody, with your endeavors.
Yep. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.